jazz trumpeter, renowned educator, film scorer, and above all, I think storyteller. Is that you?
Mm. Yeah.
That is you. Terence Blanchard is here with us, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today, Mr.
Thank you for
Blanchard.
having me.
Absolutely. We are very excited about an upcoming performance that you will be having here in the Southwest, in the Santa Fe area. Very excited. But as we spoke off the air, what I'd love to hear from you today, and I think it would help our audience tremendously, is to speak a little bit in your own terms about mentorship and the type of mentorship you received when you were young, and throughout your fantastic professional career, how
Mhm.
that now applies and shows up for you as an educator. Taking back here to the times of Lionel Hampton and Art Blakey. You were very young,
Well, it goes even well before then.
right before then.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
it goes well before then. I mean, listen, man, my hat goes off to teachers, around the world. We don't give them enough credit. We don't pay them enough attention. But my first piano teacher was a woman named Martha Francis, lived next door to me when I was about 5 years old.
Mm.
My next piano teacher was a woman named Louise Winchester. From the age of 12, 11 and 12, she started teaching me theory and was giving me ear training lessons, when I was a little kid. And then when I was 15, I started studying with a guy named Roger Dickinson, who's still my mentor to this day. When I have major projects, when I did my first film, when I wrote my first opera, he's the guy that I always call. He studied in Vienna. He's a descendant of another great African-American composer named Howard Swanson, and these guys, were my first mentors who really kind of, paved the way for me and gave me the tools, to that would help me develop. And really the tools that I still use to this day, and then of course, I started playing with Lionel Hampton, where I met Curtis Fuller, Frankie Dunlap, Oliver Bena, some great musicians who helped, mentor me, just show me the ropes, tell me things, give me history about what it is that happened in the music, how they got into the music, and then when I started playing with Art Blakey, everything just kicked into a whole nother gear, because I met all of my heroes playing with him. I met Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie. Actually, when I met Dizzy Gillespie, Art Blakey told him that I play piano. So Dizzy suggested that just the two of us go out on the stage, and I played piano for him on a ballad, and then he played piano for me on a ballad.
Hmm.
You know, Paul
Interesting.
Terry, Woody Shaw, Freddie Hubbard, all of those guys were people who, like, whenever I would be around them, man, it was always like having a music lesson, and
Yeah.
it was fun. It was educational. And now that I look back on it, man, it was profound, really. To have those experiences. But the thing is, looking back on it, you start to look forward and you say, well, those guys are gone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who is going to be that? And then you
Yeah.
start to realize it's our time to take up the mantle and start to spread this information amongst our youth, you know. And that's what I've been doing. I used to work for the Thelonious Monk Institute, which is now the Herbie Hancock Institute. Then I left there and started teaching at UCLA
Mhm.
and Berklee College of Music. And I've recently had to give up all of that to take this job at SF Jazz, but because it's a very fulfilling job, but it takes a lot of time. And I miss teaching a lot. I feel very proud. Just at the Grammys, man, two of my students were nominated for a Grammy, Leonel Lewicki and Gretchen Parlata.
Yeah.
I was really proud of them, man. Teaching has always been the thing that I love the most, probably outside of performing, because I love to see the light bulb go off,
Mhm.
in the eyes when you give students the tools that help them develop their ideas. I never give students ideas,
Yeah.
never. That's never been my thing. My thing has always been to give them the tools to show them how to take a little kernel of something that they've come up with and blow it into something much bigger.
That is beautiful. And that's precisely what I'm pinpointing at. When, with all the early mentorship and help and tutoring that you had, there was a point here in your teenage years where you, as you said yourself, were standing behind your heroes, right? That's the word you used. Now, at that moment, most teenagers, when they meet their heroes and they're standing on the same stage, on the same level, and they're asked to perform and join that rank, would get a little bit shaken. A little bit shaken, to say the least. Yeah?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
you specifically, and I know it's hard to describe, but as an 18-year-old, you're playing with your heroes, and I'm sure, as a human being, there have to have been a bit of nervousness and doubt and shakiness in there. What was it like for you? And I know that when it comes to mentorship, there could be a great mentor, but then
Yeah.
there has to be the other side of it, which is open ears and open hearts and willingness to be coachable, which again,
Yeah.
it's not a given, right?
Well, all of those things are true. And basically what it is when I first started playing with Art Blakey, it was an overwhelming notion just to sit down and think that I'm standing in a place where Lee Morgan stood, Freddie Hubbard,
I bet.
Woody Shaw, Clifford Brown,
Yeah.
even, and then he also played with Dizzy Gillespie, Fats Navarro, and Billy Eckstine's band. And he would tell us a lot of stories about that. So that's a very kind of daunting notion just to think about. But then after a while, the music just starts to take over.
Mm.
The feeling is so strong when you're playing with him is that, you kind of throw that away and get into the music. And that's the power of what it is of being with those guys.
Yeah.
It's I remember sharing the stage, man, with Woody Shaw and Freddie Hubbard, and seemed like everything I played belonged to one of those two guys, that day. But they were so encouraging, man. It pushes you forward. And the thing is, it's not like you're trying to compete with them, but when you stand next to Freddie Hubbard and you play something on the trumpet, you go, oh, okay. I see how that works now. Let me
Yeah.
try that.
Yeah.
And it's not about competition, it's about learning,
About learning.
and
Yeah.
you know, I've had so many situations like that, man, playing with Sonny Rollins at Carnegie Hall.
Oof.
I mean, it was an amazing thing.
That's daunting
Uh,
to hear about it.
oh man, look, bro, the rehearsal was scary, and then when we
Yeah.
get to the gig, he had that bandana tied
Yeah.
around his head, and he had that very serious look on his face, man. And we started to play the first couple of tunes, and he was cool. And we got to this third tune, man. It was minor blues, man, and he just lost his mind. He just went up, and I played everything I knew 3 times, man, trying
Yeah.
to keep up with this dude,
Yeah. Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
It was that was an experience for
Yeah.
sure.
I heard something one time, Rollins talking about, which is sort of, I see it as you're just talking about the music takes over and you sort of go on this journey. Rollins talking about the process itself being like meditation for him. And when I hear that, I am really relating that to some sort of ascension above what is sort of tangible here, right? You get into this journey, you trust the process. And I am sure that's way more enjoyable when you have had not only the confident coaching and mentoring, you were nurtured in a way, as opposed to an environment where you're being challenged, you're being pushed, and you just like show much ill. It wasn't really, it was a nurturing environment.
Well, it was a nurturing environment, but the most important part of it, that you learn, and it's one of the things I try to stress with my students when I was teaching, um, is that you really learn your craft and you try to learn as much as you can about your instrument,
Yeah.
so that not just to regurgitate what it is that you practice, but to be able to be in the moment,
Mm.
and go beyond what it is that you practice and just deal with ideas as they're coming, or as you hear other people, or as you're being inspired by what other people in the group may be playing.
Mm.
You know, that's the thing that makes it magical. You can't even recreate that.
Yeah.
That's the wildest part about what it is that we do. That sometimes, man, when you're playing with guys, everything just seems to come into focus,
Mm.
and that's when the magic really starts to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not like anybody's in control other than the universe,
Yeah.
and you have to go with it. You have to allow yourself to be there. But in order to be there, you have to have your ears together. You have to have your technique together, your theoretical knowledge. All of that stuff has to be there. It's not just gonna fall out of the sky. You
Yeah.
know, I tell my students all the time, you know, the biblical saying is seek and ye shall find. It doesn't
Mm.
say ye shall find.
Yeah.
It says seek
Yeah.
and ye shall find. So you have to go out and do the work, you know, to make sure that you put yourself in a more advantageous situation.
All that laced with the training and the trust.
Trust is the big part of it. Training is the major part of it. The training is what's going to allow you to get to the point where you can function.
Mm.
You
Hmm.
know, a lot of times, you know, with young artists, they learn a few things and they're able to go out and perform, which is fine. But we're all trying to strive for that next level, that thing that Sonny Rollins was talking about, that meditative state where you couldn't replicate what you played even if you tried.
Yeah. I'm constantly trying to look for, in a way that I can translate to listeners, the power of what needs to happen in this jazz universe for you to arrive at this particular moment where you are in sync and in flow with
Mhm.
your partners, and how that translate into life applications for people in other ways, because it is a process of a human being going through complexities. It could be
You
a
know, the
sports
best
team
analogy
or
that I've heard to describe that is basketball.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because that's what most people really understand. You know, when you look at basketball players, those guys move up and down the court with ease.
Yeah.
They learn how to move the ball to who has the hot hand. You know, things move around. If somebody else has the hot hand, then they let him go and then he'll shoot. But one of the things you don't see is them practicing the dribble. You don't
Hmm.
see them practicing moving around the court,
Yeah.
moving left to right, being able to jump, being able to just shoot free throws, then be able to work on layups. You don't see that. That's the grind work, you know, that everybody has to put in to get to the point that when they're on a fast break, everybody can function together. You know what I mean? If they would get on a fast break and they had me out there, it wouldn't be a fast break, bro. You know what I
well,
mean?
well.
Well, but you know, understand, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
'Cause
for
I mean,
sure.
I'm not a basketball player on that level, but that's what has to happen with the music as well. You know, you have
Yeah.
to prepare yourself to be in a situation to be able to function. You know, and
Yeah.
that's what practice and study is all about.
Yeah. Now, speaking of life applications, I am sure in throughout your teaching endeavors, you have encountered people that may tell you they're practicing, but they are basically going
Yeah,
through a motion, a particular
yeah.
amount of exercises, but are they practicing toward excellence? What's the distinction here? What's the,
The main thing is you can always tell.
mm,
You can tell. You can tell when people are practicing because we're around them all the time.
yeah.
You can tell when people are not practicing. You know what I mean? Because things don't change. Things don't get any better. You know, and one of the things that I'll say is if you're going through the motions just by playing but not correcting, that's not practicing.
Hmm.
That's just going through the motions. You
Yeah.
know, I had some friends of mine that I went to school with, you know, they would get in a room and just play and wonder why they weren't getting any better. It's because they weren't focusing on playing with a metronome, making sure that your muscles get in the habit of moving evenly and smoothly, working on your tonguing, working on your breathing, working on lip slurs, working on all of the fundamental things that make playing a melody seem easy,
Mm.
you know?
Mm.
So when you start to do that, that's when you start to see results, but
Yeah.
you have to be consistent on it. And the thing that I tell young kids, you know, now that everybody has a phone, I said, listen, if you have a piece to play, the first day you pick it up, record yourself playing it,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
then put the phone aside, practice hard every day for a week. And you
Mm.
have to practice hard. Focus on the mistakes. Practice with a metronome. Try to really correct everything. Do that for a week and record yourself again. And when you see the improvement, multiply that by 4 and think about where you would be in a
Yeah.
month. And then
Yeah.
take that and multiply it by 6 and see where you would be in 6 months. You know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing is probably the most important because once people can see their own growth, you know, I don't have to worry about them. then hopefully, they'll be bitten by the same sickness most of us.
Yeah, no
And,
kidding. And now, and it's nice to hear you talk about that from obvious experience and longevity in this universe. It seems to me like when you're teaching, those are some things that you are adamant about, correct? The practice of,
oh, there's a lot of things that I'm adamant about,
such
but
as,
all of my students have to compose.
mm,
All of them. They have to compose. And then there's certain rhythms that they're not allowed to write because they've been overdone in jazz.
mm,
Boom, boom, boom. That rhythm there, nobody's allowed to write it. Because a lot of times when guys create tunes, they put up a vamp and they go bang, bang,
yeah,
bang, or they do some version of that without thinking. Whereas what I try to get them to do is I look at their initial idea and I said, there's information there rhythmically and melodically that can help you create a vamp that's unique to your piece.
yeah. I'm going out on the limb and sort of assume that the you being adamant about that and being an example of that yourself was probably reinforced about when this happened. I read somewhere that at some point when you were young, Art Blakey, in one way or another, told you to be yourself,
Oh yeah.
and because he saw and felt and heard the influences of the greats that you loved
Mm-hmm.
coming out in your
Yeah.
sound, and he picked
Yeah.
it up and he basically nipped that in the butt. Is that how it happened?
Oh yeah. I was trying to play like Miles Davis.
Mm.
I was trying to be Miles. I was playing with a mute, and he goes, "Hey, man, you ain't Miles." He says, "Now we can find some music that'll help you find what it is that you do, but leave that alone." Miles did that. He's already done it. It's been done.
Mm.
Let it go. Find something that you can make your own, and work on that. And that. And then the other thing that was told to me was, there was a great musician from New Orleans. His name was Alvin Baptiste. And Alvin Baptiste really broke it down. He said, "Listen, man, the easiest thing to do is to play like Miles or to play like John Coltrane." He said, "That's easy
It's
because
been
you
done
know that
for you.
everybody loves those guys."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He said, "What's hard is to really, really, really dig deep and to try to find something of your own and then present it to the public, possibly to be rejected. That's a scary thing." You
Most
know
likely
what I
to
mean?
be rejected. In
Well,
in in
not if
some
it's honest. Not if it's honest. Then that's the thing. If it's honest, it won't be rejected. Because it'll be touching on what it is that we can't speak on. That's the reason why we have music. Music goes beyond words. But the feeling of it has those moments where you can sense something that we can't put into writing. You
yeah,
know, that's the beauty of what it is that we do. And the other part of it is that music is universal in that way. It goes beyond all of these languages.
yeah, yeah.
That's the reason why we travel out to so many countries, because people hear the music and get it right away,
Get
even though
it.
we speak in different languages.
All this based on a platform of being original. I think that's really the key.
Yes. Hmm.
Authentic. Even you can be authentic and still be on somebody else's vibe, but being original. That's
Hmm.
where I believe, because of this opening into rejection versus acceptance, it's probably scarier, right? For
It
especially
is
for
scary,
younger.
but here's the other part of it too that I always run into when I'm teaching kids for the first time. Just because you want to be different doesn't mean that you have to be complex. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to be the deepest musician, the most controversial guy. It's
Yeah.
like, no, sometimes, man, Picasso did one of his most controversial pieces was just a bicycle seat and handlebars.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
Texas Longhorn
Yeah.
piece,
Yeah.
right? And it's a very simple piece.
Yeah.
Look at Thelonious Monk. Boop, boop, beep, boop, boop, beep, boot it, boot it, boot it up. It's very simple, but it's a classic melody,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's being different doesn't necessarily mean complex. And the other thing too is that our Blake used to tell us all the time, man, look, the easiest thing to do in the world is to write something that nobody can play.
Hmm.
That's easy. What's hard is being honest about yourself and putting it on paper, like I said earlier, possibly to be rejected. That's the hard thing. And to find something like that can help lift people's souls.
Wow. Whew. Lift people's souls. That is a it's quite a task, right? But when you
Mhm.
come from a place of you mean to give all of yourself, I think even if it doesn't lift this guy's soul, you don't know who else is being touched by it.
Well, listen, I mean, that's the reason why we got into music,
Yeah,
man. Some
yeah.
piece of music caught my attention and just made me feel better about my day,
Mm,
and that's what it is that I want to do with whatever it is that I create. I feel like that's part of my responsibility, not everybody's, but it's just part of what I feel
yeah,
is something that I want to do with what it is that I create for people.
yeah,
Music, especially now, man, there's a lot of tough things that people are dealing with, in our country and in the world. The George Floyd situation,
yeah,
man, politics, the pandemic, storm, natural disasters, just life in general. There's a lot of tough things that people have to deal with. And music and art can be those things that can help uplift and help rejuvenate and help heal.
yeah,
So for me, it's real, and that's the thing that I try to tell my students. Like, writing music and creating music is not a competition. It
mhm,
isn't, because you guys may create something that's very valid, that's something that's very different from what it is that I do, you
yeah,
know, and that's my hope for you, because we're not all supposed to be the same. I think one of the things about art, it should really help us understand when it comes to race, gender, sexual orientation, all of those things, that we have to learn how to celebrate our differences and not try to kind of squash those. The beautiful thing is, like, you have so many great trumpet players that played the same instrument with three valves,
mhm,
right? But they all came up with something different.
definitely.
It's something beautiful to say.
Yeah, yeah. This power of music is precisely why I'm constantly seeking, as a broadcaster, not as a musician, seeking to draw this line between that and life applications. Because people like different things, people do different things, but that's the human struggle, especially when all those things that you mentioned are coming at us, right? You can look around and see that people are losing steam while others next to them are gaining speed on some things. What's the equalizer here? It is, I think, I believe, and I want to believe that it's this ability to appreciate and ability to let yourself be touched by music and art. It's a
All
heart
of that. It's all
opening.
of the above, and it's also the ability to not to succumb to that.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Sometimes when we're all faced with challenges, man. We're all faced with challenges. But the whole key is to fight past that.
Yeah,
Wayne Shorter used to say, you have to fight for your happiness, man. It's not something
mhm.
that's just going to be given to you.
It's
You
not
have to
coming.
fight for it, and when you fight for it, it becomes even more meaningful, you know,
Yeah,
and it's all attainable. That's the thing. It's all attainable. So for me, that's what art is about. Art is about, like, making us reflect on those things that we struggle with, that we may not be able to put into words. Art is also the thing that kind of uplifts us. It can make us laugh, it can make us cry, but it goes deeper into our souls than probably most anything on the planet,
yeah.
you know? And that's the reason why I've always thought music and art is probably one of the most important things in our society that we need to maintain, because those are the things that remind us who we are as human beings,
Hmm.
just how we respond to those things. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? And
yeah.
we need people to be able to continue to create great pieces of art, whether
Yeah.
it be painting, music, writing,
Hmm.
prose, you
Yeah.
know, whatever it is. But we
It,
need more creators all the
yes,
time.
it's certainly a key for a key that opens up and unlocks a lot of potential boxes in us. Speaking of that, I would say here, facetiously say that you could have 99 problems, but for you, not being busy ain't one, right? You, I mean, it is daunting
Yeah,
to
no,
just
yeah,
see, which is
yeah.
awesome. I want to congratulate you on that. I'm sure
Thank you.
that this
Thank
does
you.
not come easy. You make it look easy in your performances and in your recordings. That's besides the point. I can see that you have the backbone and the education and finesse to
Thank
navigate.
you.
But when it comes here from, you were, I believe your dad was an amateur opera singer, right?
Yeah.
Or yeah,
Mhm.
okay. So that even when you're probably a baby, that thing's already. This is a really beautiful environment to be in when there's
Well, yeah. I mean, music was always in my house, not
always.
only because of my dad, but my mom's sister played piano and taught voice,
Mm,
right? her first husband sang with my dad,
Hmm.
and my grandfather played guitar. He didn't play it much when I was around, but he had a guitar. So he was my whole family was in the music all the time, and they played in church all the time.
Yeah.
You know, my dad sang in church every Sunday, and then they would have like small little vocal groups that would do recitals around the city. Christmas time, they would go caroling,
Right.
to certain people's homes and around the city.
Yeah.
And I remember, man, look, Andre, they put me in the choir one Sunday, man. One Sunday, they heard me sing and they said, well, man, doesn't he play the horn? Tell him to go get his horn.
You don't know.
He can praise the Lord from back here.
You don't know if this is a jab or what it is, but that's interesting. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
at least you knew it. But it seems like the just the tendency to appreciate the art form is already instilled in you, and it's really
yeah,
great. When you
yeah.
were so when you were beginning, and then came your teenage years, and then came Lionel Hampton, Jazz Messengers, and beyond. Now you find yourself scoring major motion pictures,
Yes.
writing operas, performing, teaching. What is the bandwidth like? How do you balance all of this? And I'm sure that there's a lot of things that you're still looking when you look ahead that more diversifying that you're going to do, and you've got the energy for it, and you have the calls to do that. How are you balancing all this?
It's the most important thing is to have a great team around you. You know what I mean? Like um Elise, my publicist, um, hit me up this morning. You have these interviews to do. My manager says, well, look, this is coming up. We need to talk about this.
Yeah,
We need to talk about that. My road manager will sit down and say, hey, man, do you need me to pick up this when we do the show? So-and-so is not, there's so many things around me that kind of help me stay organized, you know,
yeah,
and that's the most important thing is to be organized. When like, for example, as soon as I get off the phone with you, I'm going to work on some music that I have to work on for my band, going to practice. And then I have some music later on that I have to work on for a television show, you know, and those are on my schedule for today.
yeah,
And every day I have a schedule like that,
yeah,
and it's as long as you stay on schedule, and don't let things get backed up, you'll be okay. The most important thing is to do something every
yeah,
day.
yeah,
It's not going to get done on its own. When you're working on a film, it can be a daunting thing, man, because there's a lot of music that you have to write, But if you wait until the last minute, it's going to feel like a lot of music
yeah, yeah,
that you
yeah,
have to write. Whereas if you try to make sure that you write 2 to 5 minutes a day and space it out over a certain period of time to give yourself time, then you're not stressed. Then you
yeah.
can really concentrate. And then you can really focus on what it is that you need to do.
And you
So
stay,
being
and you
organized is the most important part of it all.
For sure, and you stay on point as well, right? It's just like
Yeah.
rowing across the ocean every day. You keep rowing and balancing, and I'm sure that being operating from gratitude
Hmm.
for
Oh,
having these
definitely. Definitely.
opportunities.
Gratitude is the most important part of it. I wake up every morning, man, and chant. And one of the things that I think about, is how grateful I am for everything that I've done and all of the opportunities that I have, So gratitude is a big portion of it. But I'm going to go back to something we were just talking about. It's not just about rowing across the bay, you know, but it's about rowing across the bay at a given time where you know that you don't have to rush across the bay, and you know that you'll make it across the bay in time enough to sit down and relax and enjoy the bay.
Interesting.
You know
Yeah,
what I
that
mean?
is it. That is it. Because
Yeah,
rowing forever is not really.
no, 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 no. I know. But the thing about it is, and here's the thing: if you think about it, rowing forever, that's what it's going to feel like.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But if you think about it's a beautiful day to be out here in the water, rowing, then it takes on a whole nother feeling.
yeah,
A lot of it is all in the way you perceive things.
yeah,
If you perceive things as being a lot of work, then of course that's just what it's going to feel like because you're constantly looking at the end goal. But when I'm working on a film, man, the scene that I'm working on that day is the most important thing.
yeah,
I'll get to the rest of it, but right now, even though I may need to refer to some other scenes later on because they're all connected, But right now, this scene is the most important thing. So let
Yeah.
me make sure I make enough time to give it the time it deserves.
For sure. Quickly drawing the line here again with live applications. Notice that we have not talked shop. And of course, we're speaking with Terence Blanchard, jazz trumpeter. We have not talked shop. We're talking everything that allows you as a human being to be and become, to be able then to perform professionally, to be able to
Mhm.
have a fulfilling life, and to actually be talking about it without talking about it, which is
Right, right.
that's precisely what I intended to do, and I appreciate you going down this line here with me. Really quickly, I wanted to ask you, from obviously, the world knows you as a great jazz trumpeter and also an educator. But and I won't use the word stints, but this tentacles that you now have into writing opera and film scoring, I know it gets you busier and
Mhm.
gets more demand for you. It's a strain, but you've already said how you operate, gratitude and pace and organization. That's beautiful.
Mhm.
What does it do to the core of yourself as a jazz musician? In other words, does it stretch you thin, or are these just layers that you put upon yourself and it feels natural and it feels complete?
No, it doesn't stretch me thin.
Mm,
It's more opportunities to create. When writing for a jazz ensemble, a typical jazz ensemble is a small group. They used to call them combos,
yeah,
when we were young.
yeah,
Um, and while those things are fun, there are limitations just by the mere nature of it being a small group,
mm,
you know. And when you get a chance to do an opera or a film, more than likely, in film, hopefully you'll be writing for full orchestra, definitely for opera. And you also write for voices. And those things just tend to make you grow. And the wild part about it is working in film, it really helped me in terms of perceiving how a show should run. Because with a film, there's a definite beginning, middle, and end,
mm,
and with structuring my performances, I tend to think along the same lines,
yeah,
even though it's a 1 hour performance,
sure, yeah,
and the beautiful thing about all of this stuff for me is that they all inform each other, all of them.
mm,
You know what I mean?
interesting,
I take things that I've learned in the jazz world and bring it to the operatic world and the film world. And I take things that I've learned from those worlds and bring them back to my jazz world. So it's I think the common denominator is that, you know, we all try to create that perfect melody that everybody lusts for. You know what I mean?
tell that
Doesn't matter the
story.
genre that you create it in.
Yeah, tell that story as a storyteller. Obviously, with all the bullet points under that, it must be interesting for you to actually watch live breathing humans walk on stage and open their mouths and speak your music.
Uh, you have no idea
Mm,
how crazy it is when you sit in a room at a piano for 2 years working on music, melodies, harmony, rhythm, and all of that stuff. And then it boils down to one day you're in a room and people are moving and you're hearing these melodies. You go, man, that sounds familiar. Of course, well, I wrote it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And then you take that to the stage when then there's lighting and then there's wardrobes and there's choreography and
must be mind
all of that
blowing.
stuff, and it's just, I think it's probably one of the most, for me, one of the most addictive things, I could have experienced, because it's like the highest form of musical theater that I've been telling people, you know. And then it goes from that to doing it on one of the greatest stages on the planet, which is the Metropolitan Opera,
Yeah,
and in Chicago at the Lyric Opera. You know, those those places are the premium performance halls.
yeah,
And when you get there and you see what these A-list professionals from all different angles, you know, even down to the stagehands, man, you know, it's incredible to experience,
yeah.
and it's it's a phenomenal thing to go through, and I feel very, very, very blessed to have had, you know, these moments.
It must be fantastic. And I want to put an image in your head here. Maybe you already had that, but imagine you experiencing that for the first time and sitting right next to you, your 12-year-old self.
Oh,
Like
oh,
what happened
yeah.
here? You know,
Well,
because
that's exactly what I would. That's what the 12-year-old self would have been
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Hey, dude, what happened? How'd this go down? You know what I
How
mean?
did this go down? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I remember, you know, my when we did my first opera in St. Louis, Arthur Woodley told me, he said, your father would be proud, because he knew the story of me and my dad and how my dad loved opera, and how he wanted to be an opera singer. And it's never lost on me, you know, that I'm in this world, but it does overwhelm me sometimes, you know, to see the magnitude of these productions, you know, because it's not just the magnitude, but it's like I said earlier, it's the level of talent that exists from top to bottom throughout all of these productions. You know, the stagehands, the, you know, the production crew, the lighting guys. It's, you know, it's an amazing thing to watch it all come together. But that's the drug.
That's the drug.
That's the drug. You know, when you see it, when it goes from this stage, from being here on the keyboard to then being on that stage, man, it's something else.
Yeah. And I think this is obviously, I mean, who am I to say, but your dad having been an amateur opera singer and having had that dream is in you and is realizing that because
You know, yeah, you know, me and my mom, we would laugh about, you know, if my dad were living, man, we'd have to chain his butt to a seat because he'd probably try to run up on stage and be a part of the
oh
production.
yeah, yeah, no, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, it's so
Yeah.
nice to be able to carry that in your
Yes.
being, in what you give out. And above all, I have to tell you, Terence Blanchard, I appreciate you sharing with me this whole thing about this trajectory, and still being a sweet, humble, approachable man that you obviously
Mm.
show to be. And I know we just met, but I appreciate that, and
Thank you.
it's one of those vital things that people have to understand that you may reach heights, but you're still the man or the woman.
Well, listen, man, you know, one of the things about, you know, the way that I've grown up is that, you know, I'm a musician and I've done a lot of things, but that's not all of who I am.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? That's just a portion of who I am. I'm still a father. I'm still a husband. I'm still all of the, not grandfather, you know. And those things keep you humble. You
yeah,
know, my grandkids come over here, they could care less about any of that stuff, man. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's just about going over to G-Paw's house, you know what I mean? And
yeah, yeah. Of
you know,
course,
yeah. So you know, when you look at it like that, it makes me respect this more because of what it allows me to do. But this is a reaction from the life that I'm living
for
with
sure,
my family,
for
if
sure.
that makes sense.
And yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, it probably informs a lot
Mhm.
the tone of your teaching and your mentoring,
It
which is
does.
very. There's a like I said before. There's a lot of resources. You know, I could sit with you for hours. We don't have a lot. We have limited time here. I want to
Mhm.
respect your time. There's a performance coming up here in the Southwest, what we call the Land of Enchantment, by the way,
Okay, nice.
Albuquerque, Santa Fe, New Mexico,
Uh-huh.
and tell me a little bit about the E Collective and the Turtle Island Quartet. So we're talking two different ensembles, and this performance coming up on the 22nd, and people can check out thelancet.org for more information here in New Mexico. Um, the performance is inspired by the works of Wayne Shorter,
Yes.
the great Wayne Shorter.
Yeah, you know, what happened was, you know, man, I miss Wayne, you know, a lot. And Wayne was a good friend and mentor. And I remember when you know, when we started to realize how ill he was, you know, we wanted to do something for him while he was still with us. You know, we wanted to show Wayne how much we loved him, what he meant to us. And we decided to do this album. And before we did the album, man, we went and hung out with Wayne at his house,
Hmm.
you know, all day, Turtle Island and the E Collective together. and it was a beautiful experience, man. But in order to show Wayne how much we love him, it wasn't just about doing his music, but it was about creating music to show him how he's influenced us all, you know. And we've been having a great time playing that music. And with Turtle Island, man, those dudes, I don't. It's been a godsend, you know, working with them, you know, because we both groups have been influencing each other and inspiring each other. Because man, those guys start to play, and I really admire what it is they do, because I really think that they're one of the few string quartets that's redefining the whole notion of what that is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these guys do some incredible things under the leadership of David Balakrishnan.
Yeah.
You know, and look, let me
Violinist.
I'll put this out there just now, right now, because I've been trying, and I'm going to continue to try. But somebody needs to commission David Balakrishnan to write an opera, because that guy, man, is really creative. You know, he's something else.
Interesting.
He's
Wow,
a voice that needs to be heard from.
yeah, it coming from you. I mean, this is like the sensitivity that you have to pick that up is super vital. Yeah, I hope somebody does. How is the performance structured with the two ensembles? All on stage together? How are you thinking
Oh
of
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No, no,
yeah,
we're playing together.
yeah,
You know, we give them a feature in the middle of the show where they play one piece by themselves.
yeah, yeah.
But it's everybody on stage, man. You know, it's
That's
a
great.
group. You know, we always laugh about it, because one of the things I said, you know, the funniest thing about this band, man, both groups, is if you saw us on the street, you would never put us on the same stage, because none of it, we look like we don't look like everybody comes from different parts of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But I
well,
think that's one of the things that makes it work. It makes it beautiful.
of course, and you've got the common denominator as well, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
all walking on the jazz shoes, and you're all looking, and you all sort of breathing and honoring Wayne Shorter here. So it's like,
Yeah.
what
Yep.
doesn't it could all be aliens, but like that common denominator is bringing you home here. Really quickly, I want to touch on something. You also have some relationship with the Latin music world and some
Mhm.
collaborations with Brazilian music. I am from Brazil, so my interest is really deep when it comes to that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I know, and I've heard and I've read that you've done some work with Ivan Lins in
Oh,
Brazil.
yeah.
There's other few like.
Yeah.
Does that flavor, as I like to say, does that the beat in the Brazilian Latin thing, does that inform your music and your art overall, or is it something you've visited and you're back? How is that present?
Oh man, I've loved that music all my life and still do. You know what I mean? Carlos Jobim. I mean,
Mm,
the list is endless. You
yeah,
know, and I think there's an infectious nature in that music that's uplifting. You know, I'll just tell you the story. So, you know, Yvonne Lenz and myself, we were staying at a friend's house together when we were doing that record,
mhm,
Miles Goodman, who actually produced the record. And we were outside on Miles's deck one night, and Yvonne went inside by himself just to sit at the piano and play and sing, right? Because that's what he does. I mean, you know what I mean? Music is like is like his arm. You know what I mean? It's just a part of who he is, right? So, man, next thing we knew, the entire party had moved inside behind him. He didn't know. He was so busy playing and singing, he didn't know. But the music was so infectious and so beautiful, it drew us all inside, you know. And that's the thing that I've always loved about that music, man, and loved about playing with him and performing with him. You know, there's one of the lines in one of the songs, you know, when he talks about he's from Rio and I'm from New Orleans and we're coming together. That was a beautiful moment. And the other moment that was like really, really beautiful was the drummer in my band at the time was a drummer from New Orleans. His name is Troy Davis. And we had Paulinho DeCosta
yeah.
playing percussion. And on one of the tunes, Troy played a New Orleans street beat. And Paulinho goes, "Oh man, that's like samba." Blah, blah. And he started playing the samba rhythm, and it went like this, right? And we were sitting there going, see, there's more to this than meets the eye.
For
You know what I mean?
sure, for sure.
There's a connection there, you
Yeah,
know. And we had a beautiful time, man, making that record and touring that record.
that's great. When you said the word infectious, that's exactly, it's a great way to describe.
Mhm.
I don't even know what the word is, right? The vibe, the rhythm, the flavor, the colorful nature. But that part of the world does have that infectiousness element seasoning to it because it makes you get up. It's not like to get up and go crazy dancing. It just makes you like, wait, what is this?
Oh, definitely, definitely.
And
And even the ballads on the buses, you know what I mean? Man, they can make you just like really reflect, you
mhm,
know. Ivan wrote a tune called Choros Osakos, right?
mm,
And I'm like, bro, what is that tune all about? There's no lyrics. There's no lyrics. It's just him vocalizing. And he said, crying waters. So he said, the tune is about how a guy loved a woman so much that his body couldn't contain his tears. So his tears run through the waterfalls and run through the rivers. And I'm like, what?
yeah.
You
And,
know what I
and
mean?
specifically about Brazil, that music has some really hidden and unknown elements to it
Mhm.
from a standpoint of inspiration and what drives it, which is the music of dissent, given the military versus civilian era and
Yeah.
government and
Yes.
dictatorship and
Yes.
dissent
Mhm.
and hiding and persecution, all that.
What does that sound like?
Oh, what does it
Sounds like
sound like?
jazz. Sounds like
Absolutely.
American music. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, with
Mhm.
a little slice of blues in it as well, right? Because
Yeah.
it's telling you a story of how I survived today as well. People are in flames. How do I navigate through this with
Man, let
rhythm?
me tell you something, Andre. I was in Rio and they took me to the favelas, man, to go see a samba school, you know. And it was crazy because, of course they had to get permission from the bosses and everything. And one of the guys said, look, man, this is the safest place for you to be right now in Brazil. Right now, he said that nothing's gonna happen to you here.
Especially with the boss's blessing.
Right, 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 right. So we were there, and they just had a band playing, right? And it was, we got there like around 11 o'clock. Next thing I know, it's like 1 o'clock, and the band is still playing. I'm like, man, this can't be what it, 2 o'clock in the morning, man. This curtain behind them opens, and there's like 300 drummers back there like playing, and that was a religious experience that I can't describe. I told somebody, I said, what's a shame about this? You could record this and still won't get an idea of what it's like to be in that room.
Welcome
You
to Brazil,
have
brother.
to be in the room when those guys are doing that stuff. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
welcome.
Oh my God.
That's where it's
Yeah.
at. It is. I'm glad you're saying this from a first person experience because you cannot, you know, you can watch it, you can read about it, you can visit
Yeah.
for a short period of time. If you had left yourself at 11 o'clock, you would never been experienced.
And trust me, anybody who goes to one of those and in a room with 300 drummers and keeps still without moving, something's wrong.
Something is wrong.
Something's wrong. Something's wrong.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
my wife once the first time or second time she went to Brazil. She's not from Brazil. She was saying, "Why are we going out to dinner at 11 p.m.?" Like,
Yeah.
well, I don't
Yeah.
know. Is it because the restaurant opens at midnight? I'm not sure. It's just I can't help you with that. And why does every
Being from New
corner?
Orleans, I can relate. You know what I mean?
Right.
But for a lot of people, they're like, "Wait a minute, hold on, man, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What's going on here? It's
Yeah.
time to go to bed." It's like, no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. Oh man,
Another
that
thing,
experience, that experience.
why does every corner bar that's made out of somebody's garage has a guitar player sitting on the bench outside? Now, all that is fine and dandy. This is the visual representation, but
Yeah,
we are talking about the power of music and culture
yeah,
coming together
yeah.
as people express through it. Comes right back to what we're talking
Listen,
about here.
it's the same thing. It's the thing that allows them to be seen,
Mm.
to be heard, to be felt, you know, and you feel that in the power of what it is they do,
And to
you know.
survive.
But the wild part about it is that there's such a fervor in the music. But the thing that gets me the most is how the guy who's leading the group can give like a little gesture and do something like this, and boy, they switch into a whole nother
Yeah.
groove. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And that is it's something magical to behold. I mean, we have drum lines, that we've had, people grew up in experiencing here in America, especially in the marching bands of the colleges in the South. you know, but even that, it's not like what a samba school is.
No.
Because you don't have 300 drummers in a marching band.
You have 300 drummers and
No.
then 1,000 people following it.
Yes, yeah.
The last thing about I'm gonna just touch on really quickly before I let you go is speaking of Latin, your effort with Poncho Sanchez was pretty eclectic, for the lack of a better word, and you were right at home there. So that you know, you were, I don't know, are you Cuban?
You know, some people think that, man. Listen, I went down to the DR one time and got pulled over because, you know, back then my hair used to turn red in the summer. You know, so they thought I was Dominican, man. And, you know, they checked for my passport and pulled me aside, took me into the side room and you know, searched me and everything, man. He said, "Sure, you're American." I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I'm American."
Well,
But no, but I listen, even though I have a French name, you know, I constantly think that, you know, there has to be some type of connection because that music feels so natural to me, you know. And when playing with Poncho, man, oh man, we had such a great time, you know, on the road with that group, man, because a great band, great arrangements, man. And he's another dude, great guy.
Yeah. And it seems to me, I mean, I heard that you're still on this. There's a Detroit date coming at some point. I'm not sure. Maybe,
yeah. I mean, we still do some things every now and then. As a matter of fact, I just saw him. Wow, last year in the middle of the year, I happened to be out in the valley in California, and I was going to a sushi restaurant, and some people were coming from this club, and they said, "Oh man, Poncho Sanchez is." I'm like, "What?" It was right. It was it's like a mall area, it's like a few buildings down. Man, we went over there after having sushi and had like a great time. I sat in with the band, you know, my wife got up, we danced. We had a beautiful time.
How awesome. What a small world.
Yeah.
What a small world. Well, Terence Blanchard, I once again appreciate very much you taking the time to speak with us today on KUNM here in Albuquerque. February 22nd, the Lansing Auditorium Theater in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We look forward to seeing you and to seeing the guys from the E Collective and the Turtle Island Quartet in this what I anticipate is a beautiful. The way you spoke about Wayne Shorter with such reverence. Can't wait to presence that live.
Thank you, Andre. Obrigado.
Oh, muito obrigado. And I hope to see you and remain in touch. Much love and thank you and congratulations with all those things that you do with such class and with such quality. I was very touched to hear about the opera experience and how your dad is super represented in that experience for you. It's a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, sir.
All right, man. Take care.
Well. Take care. Thanks.